host, Vaughn Davis. Thank you to everyone joining us online, wherever you are around the world. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for your eyes. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and your comments so we can put them to our guest. And like how we have your attention, do us a favor, no? Share this video with a friend or 2 or 5,000 so we can have a very lively discussion. Now, it's that special time of year again. What time of year are you talking about, Vaughn? Well, listen up and I'll tell you. It's the time when the JIS stages its annual heritage competitions, which are all geared at getting our youngsters to get in touch with and develop a greater appreciation for our country's heritage. We have the essay competition for primary level students, so that means your prep and your primary school students. We have the poster competition for the secondary or high school students, and we have the photo competition for the tertiary students. And what's the theme for this year's competition? It's I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Does that line sound familiar to you? Well, it should. It's coming straight out of our national pledge. All right. Here with us today to talk about the program are three of our past winners. Two of our past winners. We have Catherine Gooden and Jube McKenzie. And we also have someone to give our entrants some food for thought as they prepare their entries. We have with us a person who has many different titles and accolades, but for today, we're just going to call him a social justice advocate. We have with us Mr. Stephen Golding, right? So guys, are you all here? Can you all hear me?
How are you doing, Vaughn?
All right, great.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so we're gonna wait for everybody to get online as we get things going. All right, let me start with you, Juve. So you were a past winner of what element of our competition?
The poster competition.
Right, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first winner for our poster competition, right?
Yes.
What was the topic when you were involved in that year? What was the topic that you did?
I can't currently remember. I was trying to look it up because I don't have the piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was probably like 5 years ago, so it kind of slipped my mind.
Okay. All right, no problem. But I mean, still you can share with us the experience, what it was like creating the poster, especially want to talk to the youngsters out there who are interested in entering the poster competition to give them an idea of what your process was like.
Well, for me, it was when I was in lower six, I believe. So at that time, I wasn't really that much of an outgoing person. So when I first heard about the competition, it was kind of like a new opportunity for me to kind of like branch out and explore my art. So when I first saw it and I saw all the rules and all of the resources that were available to me, one of the images that captured my eyes was an image of a female in a traditional gown. I can't remember which type of like heritage it belonged to, but she was in a kneeling position with one of her arms raised. And that image really spoke to me. So then I tried to think about, like, with the theme in mind, how I could like use this image to portray like a scenario, like a feeling. So the concept I came up with would be like when the slave ships were carrying the Africans to the Caribbean, what would the atmosphere be like, and what hope would look like in their eyes. So the process I started with was to make her the centerpiece and have like a halo, like a spotlight shining on her with some figures in the background encircling her to show like everybody looking to her for some sort of like she's giving them hope or something.
All right, so that was great. So I hope that the competition managed to get you in touch with our heritage in a more meaningful and deep way. Can you say that's what happened for you?
I would say yes, because it was kind of like, you know, when like growing up and you're hearing about your heritage, it's more like of like a like a day-to-day mundane thing. Like you say, you see somebody hello, you say hi. It's kind of like that thing. But when you have to go out of your way to start to like look for this and search for it, it kind of like trying to like shapes your perspectives on things. And so I would say yes, it did kind of change my outlook and shape how I thought about our heritage.
But from what I've been reliably informed that the topic at the time of your entry was "We Are Free," so it
Yeah.
sounds like that definitely represents what you were going for. And this talk about slave ships and all of that, so it's great. Now I want to bring Stephen Golding in. Stephen, as we mentioned before, the topic for this year's competition is "I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace," and that comes straight out of our national pledge. And as someone who, as a social justice advocate, one who, works about and makes it your point of duty to represent that kind of thing, what does that mean to you when you hear that those words? I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. You're muted, Stephen. You're muted. Right. Go ahead.
Sorry, still getting used to the Zooming.
Trust me, all of us.
Thanks for having me, Vaughn. And let me say good afternoon to the other members of this Zoominar. And let me say good afternoon to your listeners live on Facebook and also to your prospective competitors. Justice, brotherhood, and peace, those words have long been associated with how we've come to define human rights in the modern era. We can go back to various points in history where they have sort of appeared and become these key phrases we know associated with civilization and human rights, going all the way back to the Magna Carta or to the French Declaration, the United States Constitution, and as you mentioned, even our own pledge speaks about justice, brotherhood, and peace. But I also want to remind you that a very famous Jamaican by the name of Winston Hubert McIntosh, otherwise known as Peter Tosh, the stepping razor, once said that peace is the diploma you get on your grave. And in song he sang, I don't want no peace. I want equal rights and justice. So last year, I believe your poster competition took in the issue of reparations.
Yes, it did.
And so this year, even as you change the topic, I still would like to genuflect on that as we consider these words. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Because being the descendants of Africans who were taken across the Atlantic in slavery, if you remember one time, the black in our flag, the black, gold, and green used to stand for hardships, right? Before, in the more politically correct modern era, we changed that to stand for the people of Jamaica. But let us reflect on why we had infused that concept in our own national colors, because the history of Jamaicans is one of struggle. It is one of oppression, and it is one of a constant fight against the injustices that were carried out against our ancestors, both on the continent of Africa and across the Atlantic here in the colonies. So even at the point when we came to first emancipation and then to independence, it is not something that came easy. We fought every step of the way for it. And our first national hero once said, that the Negro race is not a race of haters. We are lovers of humanity. And so I would love the competitors to, as they take in this concept, these are bold concepts: justice, brotherhood, and peace. They need to sort of cross-reference that with the blood, sweat, and tears that were laid down by our ancestors so that we could have a pledge where we promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. And those things have meant different things to us at different periods. During slavery, when we spoke about justice, we were not even allowed to testify in the courts because of our race and because of our consideration as chattel. When we talk about brotherhood, brotherhood meant something very different to us when we were chained in the bowels of the slave ship, being brought here before we even were considered for adult suffrage or being considered fully human to participate in our political process. And when we speak about peace, let us not forget the fighting Maroons who established their sovereignty when the British declared no mas and had to sign with them the first peace treaty in the 1730s, some 230 years before our own independence as a nation. These are the things I would like your participants and competitors to consider as they put pen to paper this year for the JIS competition.
All right, so you heard it there, people. As Mr. Golding was talking about, he took you so many different places. He talked about reparations. He gave you some ideas about the struggle that our Black people have had to go through and the ways in which they have fought to overcome. I'm just saying, if you're listening and you're paying attention, there are so many little touchstones there. If you're paying attention, you will be able to craft something really wonderful. You can write a lovely essay. You can write, you can create a fantastic poster, and you can do a very fantastic photo, right? So there's so many ways in which you can take this information, use it, and create something special for the competition. All right. Let me just show some quick love to people online. You have somebody saying, Sylvani Abrams saying, tell them Stephen. So she's definitely in agreement with you and what you're saying, everything you're saying. We have
What's
Stanley.
up, Mama Blue?
We have Stanley Johansson all the way from Gothenburg, Sweden. Bigging us up and saying he's watching. Appreciate that, Stanley. Really appreciate that. Maritha Thompson saying good afternoon. Pauline Gordon, lots of people showing us love. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much for your eyes. And while you're at it, let me just say that the theme for this year's Heritage Competition is I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. And, we would like to know what that means to each of you individually. The objective of today's show is to provide our entrants with some food for thought so that when they decide to create their pieces, they can do so with a whole heap of feedback. They can have a whole heap of different things to talk about and feel out and characterize and represent whenever they decide to create their different art forms, whether that be an essay, a poster, or a photograph. So in the comments, we'd love to hear what you have to say and how you can share what that means to you. And like I said, these words should sound very familiar to all of you. They come straight out of Jamaica's national pledge. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. And 2020 has been a very interesting year. There are so many things that happened internationally that would give us pause that these words should automatically come to mind. And not even just internationally, but in Jamaica alone, things that have happened that would allow us to say, yeah, man, we need to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace more often. So in the comments, just share with us. Let us know what you think, what you feel. What do these words mean to you when you hear them? I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. And like how I have Juve here as somebody who entered the competition in the past, when you hear those words, what does that mean to you? What would that kind of influence you to do if you were to create a piece for this year's competition?
Well, for this year's theme, I really like it because it's not a straightforward or a limiting theme. It kind of is a very broad topic, and it allows for different interpretations of how others would approach or their perspectives of how or what these themes mean to them. So For personally, if I was to approach this, one of the main parts that I like about it comes to mind is the brotherhood aspect of it, because one thing that I like about or love about us Jamaicans is that in the core of our DNA, we're not just one ethnicity. We're the melting pot of every ethnicity, so to speak. And for my piece, I would love to focus on that and encapsulate that in showing strength in the unity of us as Jamaicans, because we're not divided as saying white Jamaican, black Jamaican, Indian Jamaican. You're born a Jamaican, you know some, you have family a Jamaican, you're Jamaican. And that's what I really love about that phrasing or that portion of the theme itself. And to the other aspect of it, talking about peace, meaning that we look out for everybody, where our brothers keep us, so to speak. So it's not, you don't just see somebody and it's their problem. Something come for Jamaica all the way. So that is what I really love about this theme and how I would approach it.
All right. That I appreciate that. I'll be coming right back to you in a second, Juve. But one, Stephen, for the essay competition, which focuses on our primary school students, they're supposed to write a 400 to 500 word essay in which they identify a Jamaican from our past or an institution that exemplifies standing up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. The institution part might be a little tricky for them, so I want you to help them to understand from your perspective, or just as you run it through your mind, what kind of institution would best help represent standing up for justice, brotherhood, and peace from where you sit?
You know, what is of great significance is that this year, 2020, marks the centenary of the first international convention of the Negro peoples of the world that was held in New York City in 1920, 100 years ago. That convention was chaired by none other than the right excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey. In fact, it was the convention that stamped his name in the history of civilizations and propelled him to become possibly the first black icon of the 20th century. There's a toss-up between him and the first black heavyweight, Jack Johnson, who were contemporaries. And I want the students to look keenly at that, because if we speak about an institution and if we speak about one that was founded deliberately and certainly by a Jamaican, then we need to look no further than the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League that was founded by Marcus Garvey in this island, in this nation of Jamaica on July 20th, 1914. And 6 years later than that, 6 years later, held the first international convention that brought 25,000 members of the African race throughout the world, from both off the continent of Africa and from the diaspora, to deliberate for 30 days on the issue of their human rights. Now, this is unprecedented and something that many Jamaicans and unfortunately our educational institutions do not put in proper context and give it the highlight that is necessary for Jamaicans to understand our own role as advocates and champions of human rights. Long before there was a United Nations, long before there was even a Declaration of Human Rights. In 1920, that convention put forward a document known as the Declaration of Rights of the Negro People of the World. It contained 54 declarations that called for the recognition of every African as citizens of Africa, that calls for the right to free education for Africans, that calls for the right to travel unmolested, that calls for freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and a number of other declarations. One included the inherent right of Black people to possess themselves of Africa and to respect the rights of all races while championing the freedom of their own. And you have to understand that this was done at a time when racial discrimination, even though it is still prevalent today, was much more forthright at the turn of the 20th century right across the world. Jim Crow laws in the United States, second-class treatment. We couldn't even travel first class on steamships or trains at that time because of our race. And so Garvey was bold enough not to do it from a Jamaican perspective or an American perspective, but to bring Africans from the world over to deliberate and produce this document. And I want to end here by pointing this out, that document was delivered to the League of Nations in 1922 and in 1928. When the League of Nations failed to prevent World War I and was dissolved because of it, and then emerged later as the United Nations, they put out a document called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. That is 28 years after this document that was produced by an international convention of Africans, right? Chaired by our own Jamaican national hero. And if they are to compare those documents, you will see that long before Jamaica took a stance against apartheid at the United Nations, even long before it became the United Nations, there was a Jamaican who championed what was unprecedented at that time, human rights, and dare I say, pointing out to the world in 1920, just 2 years after the Spanish influenza pandemic, that Black Lives Mattered 100 years ago. Marcus Garvey. So I would encourage your competitors, as we talk about justice, brotherhood, look up that document. It's called the Universal Declaration of Rights of the Negro People of the World, and it was put out by a convention chaired by the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey in 1920 and broadcast to the world, setting an unprecedented and certainly setting a precedent that we now know later was acted upon by other nations in declaring and championing what we now know as human rights.
I'm certainly not going to disagree with you when it comes to the impact of our national hero, the most honorable, well, I suppose the superlatives don't even apply for our national hero, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and his great impact. The UNIA definitely, without apology, applies for this, and I would definitely encourage our youngsters who are doing this to look into it, especially those of the primary school students who specifically are going to be required to look at institutions or persons. Definitely take the time to do some research there. As they said, we don't know older than you. There's a whole lot of things that happened that helped pave the way for the way the world operates today that exist. And a lot of them originated right here in the minds of our own Jamaican people. So, the time and look through, you'll definitely be influenced and find something new. I'm going to come back to you again. I mean, naturally, you'd give pride of place to the UNIA. You're definitely the president.
Yeah, Vaughn. I wanted to add, because I don't want to seem biased as I preside over the UNIA here in Jamaica. But I also don't want them to be constricted by the definition of institution as so defined in a Western way. When we speak of institutions, they should consider also the fact, as I mentioned before, the Maroons in themselves as a sovereign nation during their own time could be looked at as an institution. One of the important things I want young Jamaicans to understand, and something I never appreciated at that age when I learned of the Maroons, is that Maroons did not only exist in Jamaica, but they existed everywhere that Africans were taken into slavery. And some of the first Maroon communities were in South America, in places like Peru and Mexico and Panama and Brazil. They were called Quilombos in Brazil. They were called Palenques in Colombia. So there was a network. There was an institution of Africans who were opposed to, willing to fight, and relentlessly against the institution of slavery at that time. And they fought so hard that their freedom had to be recognized long before there was any emancipation, whether from the British, the French, the Spanish, or the Americans. And so, again, looking into our history, because this is another part of the issue of reparations. Reparations don't just mean in terms of what is owed to us, but how we repair our own understanding of our own history, because we have been subjected to a colonial education written by our former masters, right? So as students living in the information age, I urge these young people to dig deep, find out about people like Alonso Ilescas, find out about people like Gaspar Yanga, Zumbi in Brazil, Bioho, Bencos Bioho in Colombia, find out about the Juka of Suriname, and read about people like Dottie Bookman, who came from Jamaica and helped to start the Haitian Revolution, which created the first Black Republic, later the first Black Empire in the Western Hemisphere, where Black people demonstrated collectively that instead of peace, them want equal rights and justice, as Peter Tosh said.
All right, sir. I mean, I hope you all are listening and I hope, I mean, the amount of names and people and institutions, the Maroons, that never even occurred to me, to be honest. And see it there, that is an excellent. I mean, I don't know if you can find one that is more suitable for our competition right now. That's an excellent suggestion. I would definitely recommend that any of the youngsters within the hearing of my voice consider this and use this to represent your entries. I'm going to bring in Catherine Gooden. Catherine, are you there? Catherine, can you hear me? Just want to make sure Catherine is with us.
Hello.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
All right, great. So I wanted to get a sense of the, you are one of our past winners of our competition. Can you remember what your entry was at what the theme of your entry was at the time when you did it?
That was 9 years ago. I don't remember, but I think we were supposed to speak about our favorite national hero. That's the most of what I remember. Yeah.
Great. Now, can you, if you can recall what the experience was like for you in terms of, did it put you in greater touch with our history and our heritage as a Jamaican young lady?
Yes. I'm not really an essay writer, but at the time, they told me to write about my favorite national hero, and I just had to write about it because I always admired Nanny of the Maroons, because she was recognized, as a military leader and stuff, and I really looked up to her, so that's why I wrote about it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you about this year's competition. When you hear the title, I Promise to Stand Up for Justice, Brotherhood, and Peace, what does that say to you? What's your initial reaction when you hear that?
Well, it has, based on what's happening now with, the whole Black Lives Matter and stuff, and I think Juve said it too, and I completely agree with him, when they say that, in Jamaica, those things are, I mean, it happens, but, I think we're more one. Like, we don't really view people as, Black, white, Asian, this and that. But, once we're born in Jamaica, or once, we have Jamaican heritage, we're seen as Jamaican. So, and yeah, we stand up for each other. So I agree with all of that.
All right. So in your mind, is there any institution or anything or any example of a person that you think best represents the, one who stands up for justice, brotherhood, and peace that you would recommend to any of the youngsters who are going to participate in this year's competition? Anybody that just comes automatically to mind, well, apart from Nanny, who was obviously a great, anybody else?
Any random person that stands up for justice, brotherhood, and peace?
The funny thing about it is that the competition is even though we're stressing heritage and we look at persons who are prominent in the history and heritage of Jamaica, there are other persons who might not necessarily be.
Could you say the police department?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? It's pretty open to interpretation. You know what I mean? So who does that for you?
Well, I would say, police department. Can even say all the ministers, a lot of them are dealing with, Corona and the crime going on.
I'm not gonna stress you out, so I'm gonna a bit. I want you and Juve also to talk to me. I'd recommend the competition to some of the youngsters who are out there. Recommend it. What was the reason that you decided to enter in the first place?
I decided to enter because I wanted to speak about, Nani. I wanted to speak about her. And I just thought that she was just such an amazing character. And the competition allowed me to speak more about why I like her and like what characteristics she had that I wanted to take up, and why she should inspire many young people, because it's the 18th century. In 18th century, women weren't really recognized and stuff, and people viewed her as a military leader. She was like a symbol of strength and unity, and you know I just liked it, and that's why it pulled my fifth grade self to write about her.
Okay. And Juve, same question to you. What made you decide to enter after hearing all this information about the competition?
Well, at the time, my art was more of like a home-based thing. It wasn't something that I really showed or portrayed to the like wider public, apart from like my friends and family. So when I first heard about it, I thought it was like a good opportunity for me to like explore and express myself. And then doing research with the theme "We Are Free" and all of the resources that were given initially, it really like allowed me to get into the mind of like when those who came in those ships, like how it must have been for them and what a small sliver of hope would have been like for them, like a drop of water to a thirsty man, that kind of thing. So it was like the first step into where I could like extend my art beyond just a visual representation of like a small theme. It was more like encapsulating an event, like emotions. So it was really a growing experience, and I would really recommend it to anybody that's really like hearing about it or listening to it, because it was something that really changed how I viewed my art and how I would express myself. Because at the beginning of the competition, when after the first 5 people were listed, I was really like shy at the moment still, because like if you were there, I didn't really speak to anybody because it was just more like of a, I don't know what to do. But as we went through it and the day of the ceremony came, I was like, it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. So it was really like a growing experience for me.
All right, fantastic. And people in Jamaica, we have a saying that says encouragement sweeten labor. So just to give people an idea that it's not all labor for nothing. There are some great prizes to be won when persons enter our competition. Just looking at the list of prizes that we've given out over the past, and I guarantee they're going to be just as great this time around. So book vouchers, books, cash, complimentary dinners for two, credit, educational courses, hotel day passes, as well as weekends for two, music players, laptops, movie passes, printers, smartphones. So, I mean, if you needed any more encouragement to participate in this year's competition, to all you students at all levels, primary level, secondary level, and tertiary level, you have an extra incentive. There are great, fantastic prizes to be won when you put the effort in and participate in our competition. So let me just go over things again just to make sure persons who may not have heard before. The topic for our heritage competitions this year the topic is I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Primary level students are asked to write a 400 to 500 word essay in which they identify a Jamaican from our past or an institution that exemplifies standing up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Secondary students can create with their hands, as in draw or put together or something like that, or they can go on their computer and put something together using Photoshop or Canva or any one of those computer softwares depicting the theme, I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. And our tertiary students, they are supposed to submit a great snap, a great photo, compose a great photo that demonstrates how to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. You know what I mean? So much has happened in 2020. Think of George Floyd, you think Breonna Taylor, even locally, you think of Jody and Farron, you think of so many things come to mind. So there are many ways in which this should hopefully spur you to want to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace, and then translate that into either an essay, a photo, or a poster. Let me just add that the deadline for entries is October 24. So that's week after next week. So you have a little time to put something together if you haven't already done so. And we have a resource page on the JIS website, which is jis.gov.jm, where you can go and get all the competition details, as well as images and so much more to help you guide your entries and so on, right? So that's all information you need. Head on to the Jamaica Information Service website at jis.gov.jm. Look for a tab on the right. You're going to see Heritage Competition and a great logo, great poster ad. And you click on that, it'll take you to the page and it'll provide all the information that you need. Okay. All right, guys. So let me bring things back full circle. Once again, I'm going to talk to you, Steve, and I'm going to ask you one more time, just leave some parting words with our entrants, our primary schoolers, our secondary schoolers, and our tertiary students who might think they're too cool for school to enter this competition. What do you think entering a competition like this will do in terms of ensuring that they get a greater appreciation of Jamaica's history and heritage?
There is no greater pursuit in life than the pursuit of knowledge. Knowledge is power, you know. In fact, our whole reason to exist is to gain knowledge and to build intergenerationally on the shoulders of our ancestors. And so, you know, this sort of competition allows them to explore not just who they are on the periphery, but who they are going back through time. Because if it was not for the struggle of our ancestors, we ourselves would not exist. And so we have to look at that existence and that advancement of the causes that they laid their life down for as a reason for our own perpetuation. Otherwise, we do our ancestors a disservice. And so this sort of competition allows them to look deeply at who we are as a people, where we're coming from as a people, the struggles we've undertaken, the victories we've had, the defeats we have suffered, and contextualizing that and juxtapositioning all of that to have a better understanding of where we are today as a people, the things that we need to do to get to where we are supposed to be. And their generation are the ones who are going to define that. And they should not be allowed to define that if they lack the most important ingredient in defining that future. And that ingredient is knowledge of self.
All right. Well, luckily enough, we're going to be joined by our CEO, Mrs. Donna Mariro, who's going to run down the overall idea behind this competition, why we stage it every year at the JIS, and what the overall impact and what we're trying to achieve with it. Mrs. Roy, are you there?
Yes, I am. And greetings to Mr. Golding and Mr. Mackenzie. Good to see you too, Vaughn. I'm so happy to be able to join our Student 58A here this afternoon as we discuss our annual Heritage Essay and Photo and Poster competitions. How have the discussions been?
They've been fruitful so far. Mr. Golding is over here giving people some real gems, some real diamonds, and I hope persons online are paying attention. The way he broke it down and looked at some of the persons or institutions and things that we never possibly thought about. He mentioned the Maroons. He mentioned, of course, the UNIA, which he proudly represents. He mentioned,
course.
in Jamaica who might not, who persons might think are a little obscure. People like Bookman Dottie, who left Jamaica and went all the way to Haiti and helped launch the Haitian Revolution. I mean, there are so many persons out there that don't come ready to mind, which is which indirectly calls our contestants to go and do some real research. And if they do that research, they will come up with some truly, truly exceptional examples. Because Jamaica produce some quality people, you know. I don't know if you
Quality, top quality, top quality.
realize the
Hi,
kind of
Donna Marie.
Hello there, Stephen. Good to see you again. Good to see you. And thank you for making yourself available for this panel discussion today. The JIS is always trying to ensure that we provide the resources for our young people. And this panel discussion is one such resource as they prepare to respond to our competition. And so we are so happy that this year, with all of what has been going on around the world, here in Jamaica, justice has always been at the forefront of our discussions. We want justice. So we promised to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. I was very thrilled when the committee came back to me with that theme. And I think that it is topical, it is timely, and we want to point the young people in the direction of the characters, the personalities, the institutions that stand up for justice, where they can go to access justice and who they can look at as role models in this whole conversation about justice. How it is that we can help those who are vulnerable around us. How is it that we can also lend our voice to add to that advocacy that is so needed at this time. So we're very happy that even in this new normal that has forced us to adapt to new and different ways of putting on our competition, for example, of communicating with a diverse set of publics. I'm very pleased that we have been able to go ahead with this competition. And so we look forward to a number of students submitting their entries as they tell us how they intend to stand up for justice. Who is it that they can look at in our society today who really embodies that whole culture of standing up for justice?
All right, lovely.
It's fun.
I know, like I mentioned it before, but it sounds a lot much more official and much more nicer coming from you. I told them that encouragement sweetens labor. So talk to me about some of the plans that we have for the persons who are winners, who person come out on top in our competition this year.
All right, well, at this point, it's a good way of highlighting for you some of our sponsors. And so our students will be very happy to hear that they are going to be giving us some very attractive prizes and gifts. We have Boone Hall Oasis, Carimac, Center for Reparation Research, CPTC and the Media Training Institute, Digicel, Edna Manley. Quite a number of educational institutions will be giving scholarships so that young people can pursue their dreams, whether in graphics or media and communication. We also have the Grace Group of companies, Franklin D Resort, Frame Art, Flow, I Create, Hotel Four Seasons, LMH Publishers, National Baking Company, NCB, Palace Amusement, Pelican, Rio. We have 37 sponsors. With Cinco is there as well. So to Sandals and Sangsters Bookstore. I would have to name out all of them, but those are just a few that I've highlighted. The prizes that we've given over the 10 years include book vouchers, movie passes, thumb drives, and other large prizes like laptops and hotel day passes and so on. And I did mention the educational courses. We've also got trophies and tablets, and that is the flavor of the day now, tablets and so on, because everybody has to be digital and be online.
All right. So talk to me about, you mentioned it briefly a while ago in terms of retrofitting our competition because of the COVID-19 situation, and we know that things have changed. So how have we changed to make sure that we're still able to deliver this competition with quality to persons who enter?
Well, the JIS is a very adaptable and agile organization. I've got a very good team. We have taken live streaming to another level, certainly being responsible for live streaming press conferences out of the Office of the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We've done for Planning Institute of Jamaica and quite a number of other entities. And so in like manner, we intend to go fully digital with our award ceremony. But before that, as was customary, we hosted the launch, or at least the launch was done electronically via our website and social media platforms. And so you can see that we were ahead of the game where that is concerned. But we'll continue to communicate with our young people who are largely in the digital space, and our launch will be virtual as well. And that is still being conceptualized, but I'm sure we're going to have it well organized and attractive for our participants.
All right. So I've been asking everybody this question. So what does it mean to you when you hear the phrase, or when you hear the words, "I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace"? What immediately comes to mind? We like to provide our entrants with some guidance. So from where you sit, what do the words mean to you? What kind of inspiration can you give to persons contemplating entering the competition?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. It's really for us to be identifying those institutions, those role models in our society who continue to speak up for the less fortunate, the vulnerable. I think more of us, as we look outwardly, not just focus on ourselves, but look outwardly and see how we can serve others, serve and give, as our pledge says, unreservedly to our fellow citizens, promising to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. It's really about helping others so that as a country, we pull ourselves up and really stand strong. So it's not about leaving somebody else behind, but it is about all of us advancing together.
All right, great. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you coming in and just representing the agency and letting persons know where we stand. This is not just a vanity thing that we do just because it's something, because we really want our youngsters out there to have a real connection to the long and proud history of what Jamaica has, of everything that Jamaica is and has done over the years. So this is just more than just lip service for us. This is something that we do because we want our youngsters to connect. We want them to appreciate that Jamaica is a fantastic place. We have a proud history and a proud heritage, and it's up to them to take the ball up and keep rolling with it. But you can't know how excellent we are unless you do the research for yourself. So this is an opportunity for you youngsters to do that, be part of that process.
You know what I'd like to add to, Vaughn? Right. I'd like to see if there are any ideas out there among our young people. So I remember my daughter's school had some students who put together a tablets kind of a program where they encouraged persons to donate their devices. So if there are ideas out there that young people want to initiate, here is a good platform to have that established, and then we can help through the networks to get it off the ground. So if there are ideas for them that they have, as it were, to stand up for the less fortunate, to be able to create an opportunity that will see them supporting the less fortunate. I'd love to see that coming out as well through the essays, through the posters, just through the participants who are engaged with our competitions.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so before everyone goes, I'm just going to give everybody a last opportunity to sound off and so on. I'm going to start with Juve. Juve, once again, I just want you to be a good brand ambassador and just represent for the competition. Talk to us again about the way in which the competition affected you and how it helped you to touch or get closer to Jamaica's history and heritage.
Well, for me, as I said, it was really a learning and growing experience. So not just having like the knowledge that you were taught growing, coming up in like prep school and going to like Heroes Day and other events such as those. It was going out on your own and you taking that initiative to look and find and research and gain that knowledge. It helps you to appreciate where you're coming from, like to understand that all of this what you're seeing wasn't here. It was the fruit of someone's labor, some people from your past working to achieve, so that you can take those achievements and achieve other achievements that they themselves couldn't achieve. So it was really a good like gaining the like understanding and the appreciation of your ancestors and the struggles that they had to go through, because the previous topic for me was really to understand that this wasn't just something that happened, it was something that shapes how we are now, because it's not like that's the past. It's still it still affects us now, and it's like a tool to for us to understand our place and how we affect and what our power is. So this competition really helps to highlight those like important topics. It also helps to shape you as an individual, because not only do you gain that knowledge, but it can give self-esteem and appreciation for yourself. As I said before, I was really a shy person coming into the competition, and having that national platform to stand on, it was really an eye-opening for me. So I would really encourage all the students and participants that are thinking about entering to understand that this isn't just like a 10-day or a 5-minute thing. It's really something that helps you and follows you through life.
All right, fantastic. You hear that, Mrs. Rose? It seems like the work is paying off. We have a testimony.
Yes, sir.
We could ask for a better
Yes,
testimony.
sir.
All right, Stephen Golding. All right, if you had a primary school student or a secondary school student, even a tertiary student, what guidance would you give them as they come to you and say, "Oh, Mr. Golding, I want to this competition. Who I must talk about? How would you help them ready their mind? What would you tell them to help them ready their mind to enter this competition, having heard the topic and understanding what and digesting what it means?"
I would say to them half the story has not yet been told, and that they must dig deep. I mean, Jamaicans have been so key to so many world events over centuries. Um, Sometimes they are unsung heroes, but they existed nonetheless, and we mentioned a few of them earlier. And there's still even some more, Cuba Cornwallis from Port Royal, unsung. Francis Williams from Spanish Town, the first black man to attend Oxford University, and who did so in the 1700s while slavery was happening, unsung. So I would tell them dig deep, because half the story has not yet been told. It becomes their duty to tell it. This is not his story. This is our story.
So where you going to get all these? I mean, you just educate me. You just blow my mind with so many things a while ago. I never even know that there's a Jamaican was the first man to attend Oxford. Where will find this information? Where we go and get
First black man who was used as an experiment by the Duke of Montagu, I believe, to prove whether black people were intellectually inferior. And he started one of the first free schools that was educating free black people in the 18th century, because you have to remember it was illegal to teach black people to be literate during slavery. You know, they could only enslave us by blocking our search for knowledge and knowledge of self. And so this was a revolutionary pioneer. And yet there is not one statue of him in Spanish Town. Meanwhile, we have a statue of Admiral Rodney and others. There's no mention of him. One of our first educators of African descent, and a Rhodes Scholar before Cecil Rhodes was even born.
Where, like I said, where we get this information? This is not taught in schools. So, I mean, where
you know, this generation is way ahead of us. They live in the information age. They have things like Google and Wikipedia. And I'm sure they will find it on those.
All right, you know what? I mean, you know, we might need to get you on to come share some more of this information so we can post that much more widely known, because definitely edifying stuff. But thanks again for your feedback. Thank you for sharing with them. I'm sure, at least I hope, having heard some of just a few of the diamonds and the gems that you've dropped a while ago, that the quality of our essays and our entries will be, you know, of a particular caliber. You can already see it happening. I'm going to speak it into being. That are going to have some real quality things that you mentioned here, right? So thank you so much for your feedback and just the food for thought that you've provided today. I think you've done much more than you thought you would today. All right, I think you've done a much greater service than you thought today. All right, Mrs. Rowe, last word to you before we move to wrap.
All right, just want to say thanks to our panelists as well, Vaughn. Juve, glad to have you. Glad to know that our competition had such a big impact on your life. And we just continue to wish you well and to continue to grow and develop into your own character and personality, and that you will be a change agent in our country. And for Stephen, well, I know he's very good with Garveyism. He taught my children, and I really want to thank him for spending the time with us today. You've invested time with us today, and we really appreciate it. The wealth of knowledge that you bring, I mean, can only be a good resource for our young people as they tune into us. You should know that we have a very good favorability rating, Stephen. So this is going to take legs and run and go to different places. And so we have about a 75% favorability rating, having done a recent market research survey. And the young people are latching on. We're on Instagram. We have our YouTube channel. So ensure your little ones are logging on and watching us as well. I know they're surrounded by you and your wife and the history and just all that information, but we are also trying to reach out to the youngsters because we believe they are the change agents for tomorrow. And so as we, yes, go Stephen.
No, I just wanted to say thanks for having me, Donna Marie, and to Vaughn for inviting me. And certainly we do tune into JIS, one of our favorite channels, and I want to encourage the youngsters out there to also look up on YouTube for Aki Walk, which is a children's Jamaican sort of puppet animated show my wife and I produced some years ago. The episodes are up on YouTube, and we just want people to log on. We want some encouragement to make more seasons and more episodes. So if anybody has seen it, they know it's very pro-Jamaican, pro-culture, and from a children perspective. And if they love it, they should let the TV stations know they want more Aki Walk.
Beautiful. We'll be sure to help to promote as well, and we probably will invite you back, or we will invite you back at some point to talk about that Aki Walk on YouTube. So once again, thank you so much. We look forward to some very solid quality entries. We're very excited about this theme this year. We're very excited about doing it virtually as well and adapting in this new norm. And as you've said, Stephen, we are a very impactful little country. We have a huge footprint on the world, and we want the young people to be proud of being Jamaican. we must not just be proud in one sense, you know, in terms of entertainment, but intellectually proud as well of our pursuits in academics and otherwise. And so, thank you both. Once again, thank you, Vaughn, and we look forward to the culmination with some solid quality entries.
All right. So people online showing Steve now whole heap of loves. Paul Tapper Young saying, bring him back, please. And Leslita Whitaker saying, wow, I learned something today. So it seems like you have a whole heap of gems dropping. Some, but Paul Tapper Young is saying you need your own show on JIS, Steve. I don't know what's going on. You might need to talk to Mrs. Rowe about that. All right. But okay, so lots of people showing us love online, lots of things being learned, lots of food for thought, lots to digest, and hopefully this will manifest itself in our entries. Let me just remind everybody what's going on. So we have our heritage competitions this year. For the primary school students, we're asking them to write a 400 to 500 word essay in which they identify a Jamaican from our past or an institution that exemplifies standing up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Secondary level students can either create with their hands or use a computer program like Photoshop or something like that to create a poster that also speaks to the theme of standing up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. And for the tertiary students, for the one that I'm most looking forward to seeing, you are supposed to compose a photograph that also reflects the theme. Deadline for entries is October 24. You can visit jis.gov.jm. That's our website. And you can, where you will see an ad, you click on that ad, it will take you to our resource page, which has a whole litany of things that you can access to help you create and craft your entries. So you have a little bit of time. You have about over a week or so. If you haven't already started, you have some time to go on and put your entries together. Make sure they're top quality, do your research. I would suggest that if you go a little bit left field, if you don't necessarily come with something that is prototypical or expected, you might stand a bit of a better chance. I don't know. I'm just putting words in the judge's mouth. I don't know. I'm just suggesting that, you know, there's so much history to pull from that I'm really hoping that we get a diverse array of entries come time for the judges to mark and time for us to announce our winners. All right. So that's the JIS Heritage Competitions 2020, your essay competition for your primary level students. That includes your primary and your prep school students. We're talking about the poster competition for our secondary students, which are our high schoolers. And the tertiary competition is for our the photo competition for our tertiary students, right? So everybody is covered. Great way to get in touch with the heritage, great way to appreciate the real history of Jamaica and the outstanding individuals and institutions that we have created. Outstanding way for you to just grow and develop as a person, like what happened for Juve. All right. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I believe it's time for us to wrap. Especially all of you who sent in your questions and your comments. It seemed that there was a mini party happening in the comment section from Maritha Thompson and Kevin Fabish. Some very interesting comments going on in the comment section here. Appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time to show us some love in the comments. This is your show. This is what we're here for. We really appreciate when you do this. And remember, our audience plays a major part in our show. So if there's anyone you'd like for us to have in studio, let us know. And we'll try to have that person in studio as soon as possible. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to see who will be in studio next. We do this every week live on Facebook. I've been your host, Vaughn Davis, and this has been Studio 58A Live. Thank you again for joining us, and please, everyone, have a wonderful day. Take care.